We the people, ABC Amber TV, Ambazonia Broadcasting Corporation. The voice of the voiceless, the voice of Ambazonia, connecting the world from Africa. With untold stories, Africa's best. We the people, ABC Amber TV, Ambazonia Broadcasting Corporation. The voice of the voiceless, the voice of Ambazonia, connecting the world from Africa. With untold stories, Africa's best.
Good evening and welcome to this very special broadcast, The State of the Liberation Movement with Dr. Martin Mungwa. And we are having this discussion at a few minutes, I think exactly 2 minutes to 9 p.m. Amber time. I'd like to start by first of all apologizing. Our handbill in relation to this program for tonight was a little bit misleading. We couldn't make all the logistics available to come earlier as planned. But I hope those of you who are watching us on at the home front and on Facebook are ready to get us going. I'm calling on you to invite somebody, and to say that we're live. You can as well share for those watching on Facebook and on YouTube. You can share. Those who would not like to be on any of these social media platforms, we have a solution for you, and that's our website. As a subscriber on ABC Amber TV website, you can watch us 24/7. We are streaming in every continent of the world. That's amazing. Tonight, we'll be having this very brief and powerful discussion with the Secretary of State for Communications and IT. And I will not even waste your time because we're starting late with any introduction of it. He will be telling us for himself what he's going to be talking about. Right after that, we'll get into the discussion proper, and we'll make sure that we can open the phone lines early enough to have us all talk. Without any waste of your time, I'm transitioning right away into the office of the Secretary of State for Communications and IT. Good evening and welcome, Dr. Mungwa.
Hello, Ambazonians. Welcome to today's presentation. Happy Independence Day to all Ambazonians and friends of Ambazonians. Dear Ambazonians, today's topic will be or is the history of Ambazonia revisited and why La République du Cameroon's suggestion of informal talks has already collapsed. Dear Ambazonians and the international community, Ambazonia was only briefly part of the defunct German Cameroon Protectorate. Starting with the Anglo-German Agreement of 1884 and ending in 1916 with the Anglo-French victory over Nazi Germany in Cameroon. The duration was a brief 32 years of plantation agriculture and minimalist bridges and roads in the coastal region of the Protectorate and the construction of prisons in the hinterland. Our territory, which became known as the British Cameroons, had been under British influence as far back as the 1850s, with evidence in the establishment of a settlement called Victoria, which had its centenary celebrated in 1958. The establishment of Victoria honored Her Majesty Queen Victoria of the British Empire in 1958 and paralleled the splendor of the highest mountain in West Africa, Mount Fako. This event happened more than a quarter of a century before the UK ceded her Victoria settlement to Germany in 1884. That agreement released our territory to be absorbed in the German Cameroon Protectorate. It must be remembered that the German Cameroon Protectorate was a product of agreements between coastal kings of La République du Cameroun in Douala and the German explorer Gustav Nachtigal. No leader of British Cameroons was involved in any treaty with the Germans. The Cameroon Protectorate ended barely after 32 years of the Treaty of Versailles of 28th June 1919. Our territory fell under British control again and went from a League of Nations mandate to a United Nations Trust territory. In the mid 20s, the British government divided the territory into the Southern Cameroons and Northern Cameroons for ease of administration. On the 21st of April 1961, the 995th meeting of the United Nations General Assembly, seated at its headquarters in New York City, granted independence to our country, which at the time had been well prepared for independence by successive British governments. Our country, the British Southern Cameroons, was at that time led by the second elected Prime Minister, uh, Django Funchal. The guiding resolution, UN Resolution 1608, Article 15, took account of representations by the leader of La République du Cameroun, Amadou Ahidjo, to the UN General Assembly, affirming that an independent British Southern Cameroon and La République du Cameroun will form a federation of two federal states of equal status, subject to the United Kingdom mediating the terms of union in advance of a treaty of union. We are also educated in paragraphs 182 to 184 of the 995th meeting of the United Nations General Assembly in April 1961, presided over by France, that the proposal by Guinea to simply unify the Southern Cameroons to La République du Cameroun to create Mr. Paul Biya's État unitaire was rejected by the entire meeting. Only fools go where angels fear to tread. Fellow Ambazonians, things went wrong barely 19 days after the UN vote on April 21st, 1961, granting our country a conditional independence. On May 10th, 1961 precisely, La République du Cameroun sued Great Britain at the International Court of Justice out of a misunderstanding in another part of the dissolved German protectorate, which through a democratic determination had joined the Nigeria Federation. La République's disruptive action at the International Court of Justice, we believe, usurped the goodwill of the then Her Majesty's government of Prime Minister Sir Harold Macmillan to see through its UN mandated obligation in our part of the world. The result was that at our designated independence of 1st October 1961, the United Kingdom did not fulfill her obligation to the United Nations General Assembly, and there was no Union Treaty. The British flag, the Union Jack, was lowered at Tico Airport and handed to a foreign president, Amadou Ahidjo. La République du Cameroun basically overran our country with armed troops who have remained there until today. Also unknown to the world in 1961, France and Cameroon had executed in secrecy cooperation accords of 26th December 1959, in which Cameroon explicitly ceded her sovereignty to France. The said cooperation treaty entitled France to determine superior priorities for her vassal state La République du Cameroun in the domains of society, education, curriculum, politics, culture, economy, mineral resources, and finance. How did the United Nations General Assembly expect the Southern Cameroons in 1961 to have any liberty or independence in a federation with the proxy of a ferocious European imperial power? We Anglo-Saxons oriented in our institution by inheritance from Great Britain. La République du Cameroon is French oriented and actively supervised by the Presidency of France. Since independence in 1961, La République du Cameroon, therefore, has been attempting to supervise the British Southern Cameroons, essentially reenacting upon the Southern Cameroons people what France does to La République du Cameroon, all in violations of terms of our conditional independence for 61 years. Not surprisingly, the de facto federal constitution of a then Federal Republic of Cameroon, formed in 1961, was abrogated on 20th May 1972, ostensibly to destroy the regional autonomy of the southern Cameroon's Ambazonia, driven by a desire to control at 100% a relatively limited deposit of petroleum and a maritime border with the Nigerian Federation. Our cohabitation with La République du Cameroon became known as the United Republic of Cameroon that lasted 12 years. In January 1984, the French pampered Monsieur Paul Biya renamed the country officially as La République du Cameroon by decree to match the key descriptor in the December 1959 cooperation treaty with France. He effectively seceded from the 1961 Federation but has retained troops and an administration in our country, now a colony of La République du Cameroon called the NOSA. La République's legacy of recolonizing the former British Southern Cameroons is accomplished by blistering violence, deprivation, corruption, and subversion of democracy. In the La République du Cameroon setup, the governance is decided by an appointed elite of La République du Cameroon and not elected leaders. On finance, France levies a 50% tax on the proceeds of all exports from our country, despite absence of an enabling treaty with our people, and christens this blatant expropriation as monetary cooperation. The evidence is in a 2011 World Bank report on oil revenue showing 54% of proceeds were looted. France looted 50%, and local politicians stole 4%. The plight of the people of British Southern Cameroons has been a subject of judicial review by the African Court of Human and People's Rights in 2009. Style Wangubne versus Cameroon, Decision Communique 266/2003, La République du Cameroon argued that the British Southern Cameroons are not a people entitled to self-determination. In its ruling, the African Court of Human and People's Rights ruled that the British Southern Cameroons are indeed a people with a separate territory, common colonial heritage, legal and educational systems, and education systems. The La République du Cameroon was asked to dialogue with the people of the British Southern Cameroons and to resolve outstanding issues, which she never did. Matters came to a flashpoint in 2017 when La République du Cameroon resisted a demand from trade unions in the former Southern Cameroon for administrative reforms, respect of Anglo-Saxon subculture, and democracy. Mr. Biya arrested trade union leaders and launched a military crackdown on civilians, an evil act that radicalized the political consciousness of Ambazonians as expressed in the national demonstrations of the 22nd of September 2017. The aftermath has been catastrophic. Over 50,000 civilians murdered and hundreds of villages burned down by La République du Cameroon troops. Hundreds of thousands left their home states for Nigeria, and millions have been internally displaced. The interim government of Ambazonia speaks for the British Southern Cameroon's people. Cameroon has in recent times created its own factions in Ambazonia, all in efforts to sabotage mediation. We Ambazonians agree to the call in the bipartisan U.S. Senate Resolution 684 for a roundtable mediation in the presence of others to guarantee the outcome. We should also state that Southern Cameroon's people do not seek to interfere in the internal affairs of La République du Cameroon. As at this juncture, we consider the outbreak of war in our territory as testifying the failure of the 1961 attempt to federate with La République du Cameroon. Our people must rise out of the failed political experiment and build a new future as a sovereign and independent country styled the Federal Republic of Ambazonia. Dear Ambazonians, let us attempt to explain to you La République's legendary disdain for peace. France's proxy, La République du Cameroon, carefully planned this genocide, and the Swiss-led process is just one of its casualties. In short, La République du Cameroon has rejected peace, and as of today, there is no mediator. Whenever there is a mediator, it will be announced publicly. That mediator will make a press statement confirming to the world that they are the ones who have taken over the case from Switzerland. Each side must give their mandate for the mediator to proceed with the process, because once mandated, the mediator must be responsible to all stakeholders such as the United Nations, the UK Parliament, France, the EU, the US Senate, and guarantors. Instead, what La République du Cameroon is trying to do is to orchestrate a backdoor informal talk with people they consider Ambazonian leaders. We of the IG will not be part of any such parade. We will not meet with such anointed leaders from La République du Cameroon, because this is a matter between two nations or two peoples. If La République du Cameroon has not yet decided that they should get involved in this process, the IG will not be part of that process. We are not going to entertain a Fumban 2.0. Let it be known that Amazonian leaders are mostly scientists and engineers, and a few lawyers who have come in from the diaspora. The group of intellectuals the French had warned La République du Cameroon never to succumb to through power sharing, as their philosophical minds will easily outsmart their outre-mer inferior complex. You now see why. For once, the French were right. Back to the story. As engineers, essentially, what we are trying to do is to get a peaceful solution to the conflict where many of our lawyers, NAM administrators, and politicians are failing. So we come in with a scientific background, which is driven by verifiable facts and classical methods at solving problems. For instance, we have a power tool in engineering mathematics called differential equations. That is a tool we have used to solve many real world problems. The solutions, therefore, have changed the way of life and improved human civilization for 25 centuries. In the simplest cases, any linear differential equation, which consists of two variables, like the two peoples in this conflict, has a general solution and a particular solution, subject to boundary conditions. This is only rocket science to those who run away from mathematics. Engineers and mathematicians are accustomed to solving far more daunting problems in this fashion. The simplest solution to our differential equation conflict involves two steps, namely a general solution, which is to end the war itself, have a ceasefire with monitors, and stop the humanitarian crisis. Next, the specific solutions subject to boundary conditions is to solve the root causes of the conflict, because between Amazonia and La République du Cameroon. A conflict of sovereignty in a failed federation affects the people directly and cannot be resolved by leaders themselves without recourse to the people. Therefore, the leaders must permit a democratic determination of the wish of the population per international law. The key boundary condition is to satisfy the wishes of the people, nothing less, which in essence means that the messengers must refer to the people to decide a democratic outcome. In the case of Scotland, the United Kingdom went back to the Scottish people for a free vote, and had the Scottish voted for independence, that would have been it. In the case of Scotland, England, unlike La République du Cameroon, has no petroleum reserves. England is like France with no oil deposits. So, the consideration of whether La République du Cameroon will have plenty of mineral deposits or not is irrelevant to this dispute. The fundamental issue of sovereignty is a decision that only Ambazonians can take in for a free vote, and is the case as is the case in international law. In the same vein of thought, France, under President Emmanuel Macron, wisely avoided a nationalist war in New Caledonia by engaging the indigenous people into talks that established the Nomia Accord. This accord granted 3 referenda to the indigenous people in 2018, 2020, and 2021. We praise France for that act, most befitting of exemplary UN Security Council member. A free vote resolves contentions and claims in a sovereignty conflict. There are many other examples, all testifying to the fact that the continued bloodshed in the former British Southern Cameroons is avoidable. Thank you. Short live the struggle, long live the Federal Republic of Amazonia. Over to you, Paddy.
That was quite elaborate, and it sparks a dimension of a necessary debate during this critical time. You are the spokesperson for the government. Perhaps you'll be the best person to tell us why the interim government and President Sako are keen to negotiations. The vice president said the other day that we're getting really close and we just have to steadfast. I really wish we had him so that he would combine this discussion. It's unfortunate we'll be missing him, but hopefully we should have the vice president one of these days to join in the discussion. There are a lot of things in what you said that we're going to start, and I'm trying to figure out where we should start. But Dr. Mungwa, with your permission, and those watching us, I'm calling on everyone to share. Uh, while I was going through your script, I also saw this video, and it has to do with the argument of our historicity, terminologies, and you cannot fully understand what is necessary without understand terminologies, because this could be a gimmick and a misconception. This is a very controversial figure. I'll call him perhaps a constitutional lawyer. He's an Ambazonian born, but he would rather call himself a Southern Cameroonian. He doesn't like the construct of that word. He's really controversial. And before we step into your discussion, if you permit, I want to play this video. He's talking in line with what you're saying, but from another perspective, and also denying some words. This will help you debunk some things in it and bring clarification. It's a few minutes of it. Let's watch this video, and so that we can dive straight forward into your discussion.
Good day. This is a party political broadcast by myself, Maitre Mola Alex Ndive Lisinge, the leader of British Cameroon National Party. Today, I want to talk to the people of Cameroon's our position when it comes to the form of a state. And I will make it clear today that BCNP is against federalism. We are for equal status. We are not for federalism. Federalism is a system of government in which the same territory is controlled by two levels of government. The United Kingdom has got decentralization, but they have got different governments. They have a government in Scotland. They have a government in Ireland. They have a government in Wales. So, the reason I don't like to talk about federalism, especially with the case of the Cameroons, is why. When you talk about federalism, the ruling CPDM government sent their surrogates to start talking about what? 10-state federalism, 2-state federalism, 4-state federalism, to bring confusion. In every walks of life, better still, in all professions, only a pilot can pilot a plane. Only a surgeon can operate somebody. Only a teacher can teach people or students. People think when we want to talk about the form of a state, it's everyone in a country that needs to talk about it. No. The form of a state is something for constitutional lawyers or experts. When people create regions, and some people say, oh, they should change those regions to 10 states. That's not how you draft a constitution. When you want to draft a constitution, You look at the people, the culture, and other aspects. You don't just go on geographical location. The reason I'm doing this party political broadcast today, because we don't need to talk about federalism or decentralization when it comes to the form of state in the Cameroons, because they can give you federalism, they just in name, but there are no powers, just like the special status. As I say, constitutional law experts, they will tell you that Britain is federalism, but Britain is not. It is decentralization. It is devolution. It's about the powers that they give you. It's not about the name. I'm calling for the people of Northwest and Southwest former British Cameroons. If you really want change for the betterment of the people of Northwest and Southwest, you must be talking about equal status. When you talk about equal status, the government...
I think we need to pause him now. I have a problem with some of the terminologies that Molandive is using. He's a controversial figure, but then I kind of also agree with equal status when it comes in context of, because I listened for that, it's about 8 minutes. We might come back to it. He mentioned the fact that we were all category B trusteeship territories and we have to be restored our statuses, meaning if the other side is independent, we have to be independent. And this is almost in sync with what Eyon Ekumbe said during the pre-draft analysis. It says if Cameroon is really serious to have Ambazonia a part of them, then they have to allow Ambazonia be independent first, so that as an independent people, the Ambazonians can make a determination whether they want to be together. Dr. Mungwa, you were in this delight bringing us back down into our history and linking it into today's diplomacy, our argument, and why clandestine talks is a nod. Do you want to enforce on that? You've just listened to Mola.
Okay, thank you. I hope you can you hear me well?
Very loud and clear.
Okay, thank you. Uh, there are a few things I have to say here with regard to the video and the current discussions we have. First, let me just make this general comment. I just have the feeling that people don't seem to arrive to realize that La République du Cameroun is tone deaf. We have all been saying this thing on our own. We've been talking about a country of equal status between La République and Ambazonia. Have you ever heard them even mention that? Why do we keep on beating a dead horse? These people they don't want peace. These are not people who even think that we have the right to be constituted as a people. Why is it that they're only trying to go behind the scene? They're sending directors, they're sending low-level, what do you call them, civil servants to come and talk to Ambazonians. Don't you read the message? They don't even recognize you. Why are we talking about this equal status? This is not something that we even have to go by. If it was a matter of equal status, they would have proceeded as recommended after our independence in the 60s to make sure that they put in a treaty, a structure that will guarantee equal status. Nobody is talking about equal status in La République. Even the so-called Anglophone minister, Diongute, Peter Mafani Musonge, and whether it's Paul, have you heard them talk about equal status? So why are we arguing? Yeah, it's like a discussion between a human being and a pig. There is no discussion. These guys it is not on the agenda. Why do we bother? I made it very clear that to solve this thing, we are engineers, we are mathematicians, and we understand the problem from a fiscal perspective. As I said, it's like a differential equation of two variables. You need a general solution and you need a particular solution. A general solution means, how do we stop this war? We had a war, we need monitoring, we need humanitarian assistance. That is the general solution. In all wars, you must stop that war first. You don't go into negotiations without the aim of stopping that war. And what is the specific solution? That specific solution has to refer to the wishes of the people of Southern Cameroon, period. And that's what has been done in all civilized nations, including nations that have been supported by France. Take like New Caledonia. In Britain itself, when Scotland wanted to gain independence, what did they do? They sent them to election. They said, you have to decide. And that particular solution must be applied everywhere. So I don't see why, maybe because they don't have, I sorry to say this, a little bit of mathematical mind to guide them in their thought process. This process is very clean, it's clear cut, and it can be solved. When you have two variables,
Yes, Dr. Mungwa, there's a technical issue in this equal status from, because I've listened to the 8 minutes blah 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 of Mola Ndife. The technical issue from, because I didn't want us to waste our time listening to the whole 8 to 10 minutes. He actually is not talking about equal status within the Cameroon construct as per what it is today. If you notice, he says the Cameroons. Now, he's one of those that do not agree with von Gojin Dinka. He believes that the name Amazonia is a personal property. He has argued that, and I agree. I don't agree with him on that. But he talks about equal status as per independence. That French Cameroon, or La République du Cameroon, if you listen to the end of it, and the former British Southern Cameroons, he states it very well. He says, in the Cameroons, it's a mistake for us to be talking about federation or even decentralization.
I don't even want to.
Cameroon to be talking about having an equal status. That means having their both independence. Then they can make their decision.
Part of. I don't see why you are even bringing the issue of federation here. I'm not a federalist, so you have to ask that question, federalist. I am absolutely not interested in the federal system. So that shouldn't be part of my menu. When I'm talking to you, you don't talk about federalism. I'm for complete 100 split, 100% independence. So I have no room for federalism. So maybe you are talking to the wrong person here. So he's asking about federalism. That is his business. I am, as far as the IG is concerned, we shall not and we will not entertain federalism. Period. Let's proceed.
For the purpose of education, because I saw this video going around, and I thought we should link it with your discussion of today to educate our people when they listen to these terminologies and to see that there is no confusion, because lawyers are smart, they cannot use words to actually manipulate. And that's why I brought it, not because we ABC cannot even talk about federation, or not necessarily not talk about federation, but agree with the whole concept of federation owing to where we are today. Now, in relation to whatever you said, when it comes to Cameroon having clandestine talks with people and the interim government stand. Yes, the interim government is a no, no, no. The president said it outrightly clear in his 1st October address to the nation that when Cameroon will be ready to talk with Ambazonia, they will meet with the government and the interim government.
They will consider. It's not that we're going to meet. Let me make it very clear. We will consider the conditions under which we have to meet. It is not as easy as La Republic say, okay, we've decided to talk with Amazonia or with the interim government, and then they put up a certain, I don't know, overture. It has to be very clear. We need to understand. We don't know who the mediator is at this point. So I cannot understand how they can reject the Swiss-led process where we had a mediator who accepted, who made it very clear to the world and was ready to be very balanced and to make sure that he addresses both parties with respect and equity. And suddenly La Republic kicks that mediator out of the window, and now I want to see who that mediator is, who the mediator that Larufuli thinks that is going to treat this case as two independent or two separate peoples, or two equal peoples, or two equal nations. That's what we're waiting for. So even if Larupoli says, okay, we have a bunch of ministers who want to come and meet with you, it still doesn't make sense. We have to understand we are not going to give a and sort of a go kart to Larupoli, thinking that if you take some minister and you say, okay, you had a delegation to go and see Dr. Sako, then that will be it. No, it is not that simple. We want to make it very clear to the world, want to make it very clear that they are guarantors, want to make sure that these people, they understand the conditions under which we have to talk. We have to connect with the European Union, the US Senate, and other stakeholders, just to make sure that it is open and everybody understands what is going on. So let's be very clear on that. We don't know who the mediator is of now. They are planning maybe informal meetings. That's up to them. They can meet with as many ambassadors as they want. But as far as the interim government is concerned, as far as Dr. Sako is concerned, we do not have a mediator yet. We are waiting for one. Since they rejected the Swiss-led process, they rejected the Swiss. Let us see who they believe in, and let us see what conditions that they are going to put into place so that we can participate. Otherwise, we are not going anywhere. I think that's very clear. And whatever trash they tried to convince the UN with recently during the United Nations General Assembly, I think at the end of it, what the Secretary General told La Republique was very clear. You have to meet with these people unconditionally. And I think that message was very clear. So we're back to square one. So we're waiting for La Republique. They've been trying to play hide and seek. They think they're very, very intelligent. You have a so-called Minister of Foreign Affairs saying, oh, we support the peace in the Ukraine and we are open to dialogue. And then you go behind the scene thinking that you are going to play that sort of childish joke with the interim government. We're intelligent people. They should know that we're engineers and scientists as well as lawyers. So they think that they can put a bunch of renowned graduates to come and outplay us. They must be joking. They must be dealing with a different set of Ambazonians. In 1961, they were dealing with teachers, not in 2022. Not in 2022. They have to understand this. And we understand their body language. We understand their intent even before they write it on paper. We are waiting for them. Over to you.
Yeah, I like the way you have just given the dynamics of what will lead to the actualization of stocks beginning. But this is where I'm taking you back because you cut me and I didn't take you through where I was taking you. This is where I was taking you through. The president was categoric in his speech. He didn't give room for anybody to talk clandestinely with either a minister or a John Gute. He said a talk should be government, maybe with not a prime minister and a president, but the two presidents, and following the protocols and processes to show that it's genuine. Now, my concern with this understanding and with the understanding that you have just explained is how the interim government is making sure, because Cameroon is disinclined to that thought and they are strategically watering down whatever we're doing, penetrating and infiltrating our system. We cannot deny that. We've seen a split of the interim government, uh, certain factions going and calling themselves whatever. We cannot also deny that. Most recently, we have seen even in the home front, they started with Unity Warriors, and they have, within a very short space of time, they have abandoned it. We're now getting Amazonian what council. So the words keep popping up, and all of this is fragmenting the front, which is something the president said again. I want to quote so that you can tell us what the framework the government is bringing to make sure that they can show some form of leadership at this time. The president said this is a time when we should come as one people, one government, one leader. And he actually explained the technicalities involved with that. Now, you should be telling us, Ambazonians, the international community listening to you now, What is the framework? Was it just a talk? What is the framework the government is putting in place to ensure that we as Amazonians are represented as one people, as one self-defense forces, and one government? And the divide is eminent. It cannot be hidden anymore. Go ahead.
Thank you, Paddy. This is a very loaded question, and I don't want to answer a question with a question. But there's one fact that is clear, and this fact is clear as far as the international community is concerned. They all know that Dr. Sako is the undisputed leader of Ambazonia, and there are several reference points that you can use. The war that we are going through, it is not uncommon for a colonizer to try to fund fractions. And what is very clear is actually how effective these splinter groups are. It is always very easy to understand whether these splinter groups have even taken any sort of momentum to change the course of the war. You can see recently what happened to Crisano. He went to Nigeria and what happened to him, and he tried to draft what happened to him. There are several indicators that prove, even to La Republique, that whatever actions they're trying to do is going to fail. We cannot put it this way: we have to persuade people to come on our side. And what is important to us is the Amazonian people. The Amazonian people are the people we represent, and these are the people who count in this struggle. And these are the people who define the boundary conditions of our differential equation. It is not leaders, and I have to make this very clear. Not leaders, not Crisano, not Bo Herbert, okay, not Cho Ayaba, not Akwanka, not even Dr. Sako. He's only linked to it for the fact that the people have given him the mandate to execute whatever he has to execute. And that's how all revolutions are. So I cannot come here to be giving a footprint of exactly what we're going to do. We are monitoring La Republique, obviously. And that's why we know ahead of time what their plans are. If we didn't know, maybe we would have jumped out of our seats to announce to the Amazonian people that finally La Republique is coming to the table. Of course, we know they're not coming to the table. So I remember the pressure is on La République du Cameroon while we're looking for other overtures. So we are not only sitting here hoping that we'll push La République or wait until La République decide. There are other things that will force La République to come to the table. And as events evolved, we are going to let the Amazonian people know. But I'm not going to put the cart before the horse. I have to make sure that it is done in a systematic manner, and and show the people exactly what inroads that we've been able to accomplish. But rest assured that we are not just sitting by hoping that La République will reluctantly come to the table. We are pursuing other avenues. Over to you.
Yeah, Dr. Mungwa, this video on the screen we are watching is a video of Boyo. Yesterday we had images coming in from Boyo. You know how the coup plotters and coup plotting actually messed up Boyo. And it gladdens the heart of Amazonians to wake up in a beautiful morning like this and to see that the restoration forces of Boyo would do this. Now, I saw a comment on someone, I don't want to gratify him by calling his name, stating that they went in hunt of no pity and the restoration forces countered them and blew off. We're sure the casualties are enormous. Now, that's not my concern. My concern, you just again told me in recognition of the interim government's position. But I'm talking about the interim government taking leadership in the face of chaos. Human beings will always do what they have to do. How is the interim government taking leadership to ensure that the confusion in the diaspora? The president has made several speeches. I even tell you some of the things he said the previous days. He said, you cannot, as a soldier, turn your gun against another soldier that is fighting the enemy unless you're. But then, how is the interim government taking leadership to be able to coordinate? Because at the end of the day, It entails good leadership to bring together by whatever form. We have a strategy, it has been working. Have we been able to see where there are some loopholes in the Amber Peace Plan? How can it be more accommodating? What else are we going to do for these boys on the ground that perhaps are being manipulated and they have drafted their lives to fight for us? And we know politicians are taking advantage of that to manipulate them.
That's
It
yes,
is that
that's a
kind
very
it is
yeah,
that word of
that,
information that I think you as spokesperson
I think
should be
I
able to.
got it. Yeah, you
Yeah,
are absolutely correct. And
yeah.
let me tell you that over the past couple of months, you'll be surprised at the number of people who have turned away from the speaker group back to the interim government, actually telling them that they were misled by rhetoric. I cannot come here to be calling people's names, but this is an ongoing sort of action by members of the interim government who've been contacting some of our comrades who left us, and now they've just realized that they were pursuing the wrong leadership. So it's not going to be overnight. It takes time, but I can assure you that at the same time we are getting information from the home front that the population that are actually galvanizing around the interim government now they know that the interim government is the undisputed force that is giving hope to our people. That is something that's based on our own statistical analysis, so we are aware of it. This thing is gradual. It is not easy for you to change the mind of somebody who had put his trust on somebody else just for him or her to realize that it was a false prophet or was a false leader. We are working it because it has been extremely painful. Most Ambazonians, I mean 90% or 95% Ambazonians, they really want a genuine change. They really want us to have independence. But the problem that we've had in the past is that you had a lot of phantom leaders who had been bought over by La Republique without the knowledge of their followers. And until they actually demonstrated in their actions that their attitude was contrary to the aspirations of the Amazonian people, were they able to reconsider their positions and try to come back. Some have just been embarrassed. They've actually been sitting on the fence. They don't know what to do. It will take them time to consider and come back in full force. But I can assure you that quite a good number has come back to join us. And this is not something that we're going to go on television and talk about it. Obviously, you have the other component, which is financial assistance to our forces on the ground. These soldiers who are defending our territory, they can't just do it by word of mouth. They have to defend it. And by giving them the materials that they need, not only will they be able to defend themselves, they'll be able to make sure that any enemy that trespasses our territory is properly dealt with. So this is a two-pronged action. Okay, we have to talk to those who left us, and it's a gradual process, and I can assure you that it is working. And we have to deal with those on the ground to provide them with the materials that will allow them to defend ourselves. And you can see exactly what happened in the video that you showed us. Over to you, Paddy.
Yeah, that's quite. I think I like what you've said, even though I would think that we have to expand on it a little bit more for clarity and understanding, because some of these restoration forces happen to have been productive us, and shockingly to me, a lot of times I notice they are watching us. Sometimes they want to hear. We've had some of us to call them a lot of names. So this is the picture I want to paint so that it can help to foster this discussion. When I look at the different images that came in from the home front, in spite of the different names, there was one thing I saw. I saw young men who, at the end of the day, might have ulterior motives, but all would prefer an independent, or most would prefer an independent Amazonia than a so-called United Cameroon. Some might have taken different angles today because within they were pushed, the statements, they have been called different names. But it brings me to something. If they're now shifting from the word unity warriors and creating something else, our intelligence has it, the same people, the same actors are the one creating a liberation council. Cho Ayaba himself is also criticizing the so-called unity warriors. It means that within the unity warriors, there has been some emancipation and re-education. Now, you may not want to give specific answers. Do you think that we have very prominent fighters within that setup that even stood for Bui? They have been collaborating in Bui. I'm not sure if I'm authorized to give this information, but I realized that um, um, General Tokandu, who is loyal to this government, collaborates with someone that's even in the Unity Warriors.
I'd rather not step on the sector of self-defense area of expertise. I have very limited access to some of the intelligence that goes on between our separate state for self-defense and the unity warriors or the Bui warriors or even the ARFs of Ngogitunja. It's very complex. I spoke to him once. He just gave me a tapestry of the delicate situation which he's working on.
Dr.
And
Muba,
I,
is like a younger brother to you, and you know that
but
he's going the wrong
finish,
direction.
let me
Would you
finish
like to
this.
call him and make
Let
sure
me
that
finish.
you get
Let
something
me,
happen?
let me finish this. But what I know that the ranks of the ARFs has increased dramatically because of the actions of the president, Dr. Sako. People have come back. The soldiers, a lot of them have come back. And we have a lot of well trained, able men with a lot of experience that are working to liberate Ambazonia. I want to make that very clear. There's a lot of hope and trust at the home front because of the actions of Dr. Sako. I want to make this very clear. Okay? We are very proud of the ARS as of now for what they've been able to do with the limited resources that they have. And the least I can ask from the Ambazonians, especially those in the diaspora, is to support the government, is to support the interim government to make sure that we can execute this war. There are even people who have resorted to doing all sorts of things that will help this fight come to an end. All sort of things they are working they are working on. Okay, so and we know that, and they're all geared towards the interim government. We have no doubt now that there's a clear demarcation between Dr. Sako and the rest of them. There's a clear demarcation, both within the diaspora, both within the international community, and at the home front. People know who the real leaders are. You don't have to talk that much to know the position of the different leaders. And we saw that during the October 1st celebrations. Over to you, Paddy. So, what else did you want to ask me?
Yeah, I wanted to give. I think I should rephrase it. I will not put it as direct as I wanted to put it. I have consulted with some of the officials. I have also tried to get intelligence from the home front. And one thing is agreeable, even from the office of the Secretary of State for Self-Defense, is that there are some of the LGAs and counties that, in spite of the efforts, the plan that is on ground, it's far-reaching, in quotes. So I would like to ask from your vantage point, what do you think this government may have to do as a reset if we need to reignite momentum, escalate our our apparatus, diplomatically and self-defense, to sustain the days ahead that seemingly may be bright if we apply the right principles.
I know you're pushing me in a direction, in a specific direction. I mean, not so long ago, Dr. Sako made it known to the world that he took a diplomatic, how do I put it? Uh, put it put it this way, he went diplomatic in a very very powerful way, and I think most Amazonians actually saw Dr. Sako, who actually was able to make two speeches to the Black Caucus. And I mean, it was quite interesting because one would ask you why two speeches. When he made the first one as a keynote speaker, it was so intense and so convincing. And people called him and that you have to say more. We need to know more about this situation. And he went for the second speech within 2 days. And that blew them out. And it's something that we are definitely going to capitalize on. It's a very powerful force, and we're happy that they recognize the right of Ambazonia for to have complete independence, and we are working with the Black Caucus to make sure that the right resolutions are met, are written, and put in the right corners for immediate action. So I that's the best I can say for now, but it's a big windfall for Ambazonia, and this is going to thrust this push at least diplomatically. And we know the power of diplomacy. People may not know that when people start talking about we need a ground zero leadership, I mean it's like a car without a steering. You cannot have a car without a steering, no matter how robust it is. You have to control the direction that car is moving. And the diplomatic front, these are the people, that's the organization that's going to recognize Amazonia. You can be fighting in Amazonia for 200 years. If you don't have that diplomatic connection, who will ever know who you are? So I just want to let these people who think that the best way for us to go is to stay on the home front and have local leadership and forget about the diaspora is part of the strategy that La Republique is trying to use to deceive us. We have a very strong diplomatic apparatus. It's actually in motion as we speak, and the results will there for all to see. And that's the list I can talk about, unless you have further questions to ask.
Yes, I think you've answered one side of the question. Amazonians, that you're watching, the phone lines are open. I think you can start calling in to make your contribution. It's about 10 p.m. in Amberland. And we think that the talk for today would have to include you very closely. So you would call in to make your contribution. You have answered one side. Perhaps I didn't really. I'm still going to come to that side of diplomacy that you answered. But this the point I'm talking about. I'm talking about a federal. We started a federal Marshall project maybe 2 or 3 years ago, and that was frustrated by thieves. Every Amazonians put their money together, um, and a single group of people today that are coup plotters and they have split stole the money. That's the simple fact. They stole the money, hundreds and hundreds of thousands of US dollars. But then the people have still proven that they do trust President Sako. How is the government? Because I'm talking to you, when I'm talking to you, I feel like I'm talking to the president. You are the spokesperson. So, and I think Amazonians need to be squarely informed as we go, especially when the information is necessary. If there have to be a reset, how are we taking advantage of this trust that Amazonians are investing in this government led by President Sako to ensure that we can have a federal enforcement, a military wing, perhaps on the home front, that can help to fill in the gap You will agree with me, there are counties that work has to be done. When you have Bui being well structured in spite of the plague in Bui, you have Gokitunya properly structured. Ambazonians looking at Mezam today are frowning. I saw a video from the Ambazonian Restoration Forces, not another group in Momo. Momo is raising a lot of money. So the federal government has got to come in. And if they are coming in, perhaps you don't want to get me started. But is that a
Oh,
thought?
well, yeah,
If it is
yeah.
a
That
thought, what are Ambazonians expect in the days ahead?
okay.
What are
That's
what
the
they
thing.
have advised yet?
Yeah, that's a loaded question, and this work cannot be accomplished without the support of the separate state of self defense because he understands the challenges and one of the reasons why Mezan failed, despite the fact that we actually put together a lot of money. They will have to do a sort of an analysis of the reasons why it failed. I think again I've talked with the Secretary of State of Self Defense, and he pinpointed some of the problems that or some of the challenges that they have. Let me just push back a little. I mean, you talk about accountability and so on and so forth. I think the president had talked lengthily about the structure of our finances now. Now, every account that we use is a 501c. You know that. So people cannot be putting money in their private accounts. People cannot just casually take money and without any accountability. The reason being, whenever anything goes wrong, because it's a 501c is registered in the United States law covers us. And that's why the co-plotters are currently in jail. And anytime soon, they'll be calling them back. I understand that there is the discovery going on as we speak because while I was in Washington, D.C., a couple of days ago, the lawyers were contacted and they're actually planning for the discovery process. So that battle is still on. Let Ambazonians know it's not dead yet. So we are pursuing that, in full force, and that will happen henceforth if anything happens to any of these accounts, because we've made it very clear that
Yeah,
all accounts must be.
yeah, Dr. Munga, please, I'm
Yeah.
sorry for cutting you short. We have a caller on the line. He's calling from the home front.
Yes.
Yes, hello, caller. Where are you calling from precisely? I think I need to give you some sound. Okay, you're calling from Kumbameme County. Okay, Kumba LGA. Yes, go right ahead, Ambazonians can hear you.
Yes, the thing that I want to say, I want to extend greeting to you at the studio there,
Thank
to
you.
my audience, to my grandfather there at the studio there. I love my father so much, and I want to give the Moza to the president Sako for the great jobs that he has been doing. I want to let you know that we are strongly behind President Sako for a good work that he has been doing, and we here in Kumba. We just want to say that let the unity that we have seen on the ground now, let you people also to try to copy it up there and make, for the struggle to move forward. Because actually, truly speaking, the fighter that they have died in the last year will die because of ignorance. If it happened that their way, this kind of unity they should have not been able to die. So please, I'm happy for the unity that we are trying to collaborate. So please, we should
Okay.
always the people of Amazonia.
Okay.
Thank you so much. That's my own contribution, and God bless you people strongly in that studio.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Dr. Munga, the word, I didn't want to bother him to ask what he means by that word unity and the unity he's talking about. But I guess he's talking about the collaboration, the cohesiveness during the October 1st celebrations. Perhaps you want to heighten that.
Yeah. I mean, absolutely. I think I did watch quite a good number of the videos that came in. And as you said, clearly there's some underlying theme that Amazonians want independence. I think we have been able, and thanks to ABC television, we've been able to educate our population to actually understand what is at stake. We have shown time and time again that La République du Cameroon is totally incapable of running itself, let alone trying to run Ambazonia. They're totally incapable. These are people who are clueless about everything. Whether that, and they always want to show this gimmick. Oh, let us give you a seaport, let us give you an airport. And what are they talking about? Let me tell you, whether it's a seaport or airport, they are all linked to their military. They're trying to look for an easy path for the military to come into our region. There's no way they're going to build airports for commercial aircraft to be landing in these places. You will ask yourself what is happening in Bamenda. Haven't seen any aircraft, commercial aircraft land in Bamenda now for how many years? And yet they keep on talking about, oh, we want to build you a new airport, and so on and so forth. These are all gimmicks. These people are only filled with venom. They're just bloodthirsty individuals. All of them in La République du Cameroon. They believe that to them, every solution to them is war and kill and kill and kill. That is not going to happen. As far as the interim government is at the helm of the struggle, we will make sure we are going to have a genuine dialogue, or it may come to a situation where we may just want that independence to be declared. Whoever is going to join us in that process, so that we can get these people off our backs. And I think that's the message I want to tell Ambazonians. And we are using every possible means we have, to make sure that our people are free. And this is not a joking matter. So if La Republic thinks that they have all these enam trained, I don't know what I call them, they just feel that they can stand up and just say anything and believe and think that people will believe it, I think they're mistaken. They must be living in a bubble. Ambazonians are far educated today than we were in 1960. I think they have to know this. It's no longer teachers who are running this revolution. This revolution is run by engineers, scientists, and lawyers. So we know exactly what needs to be done. We will build our countries. We will recognize what needs to be done. And let Ambazonians just wait and see when we take over that country. Over to you.
Yes, it's very important that we get to enforce and we keep sharing these images to bring back that beauty. It was blue, it was white, it was our tradition. We saw the fighters cohabiting, correlating, dancing, enjoying. The most beautiful part in October 1st celebrations at the home front was the chemistry between the local civilian population and the self-defense volunteers. What do you think about that, Dr. Mungwa?
I was so taken. It was so emotional, and that reminds me of my youth when I was a little boy. In those days, where you walk the streets happily, and I remember. I mean, I only knew of policemen, and they were very friendly when I was a young boy or a little boy. But soon after 1972, we started seeing thugs in our cities called gendarmes, and they have been there to today. We have to kick them out. They have to leave our territory for good. We don't need gendarmes in our country. We don't need them. They are savages. They are uneducated. They don't even recognize the human being. Okay, so these are not people we have to interact with, and we have to make it known to Ambazonians that this is not the type of security force that we intend to train in the new Ambazonia. We want people who recognize the value of the human being, not random killing, thinking that that's the only way they can administer security. That's not the way to go. And we are going to bring a much better security system that will be loved by everybody. And remember, when you treat people well, crime goes down, and it's easier to solve crimes as well. But when you have a bunch of thugs just killing people at random, there's no way you can ever solve crimes, and there's no way you can ever have peace. And without peace, we cannot have development. Without development, we cannot have economic growth. They are all interconnected. Okay? When people are free, they can be innovative. They can create new things. They can bring new ideas to the table. That's what we want Ambazonians to be. There's a lot of creativity in Ambazonians, and we cannot unleash this creativity if you are under the barrel of a gun. Over to you.
You see, I know sometimes when you are talking about that creativity, industrialization, the areas where are your strong points, maybe because you're a civil engineer and an expert in project management. Some Amazonians are chewing their teeth. Want to hear this man talk a little bit about the gun because that is the game plan right now. Bring this chemistry and talk to us. Let's see the gun issue. Now, a lot of people trying to call. I'm sorry, some of the people, particularly calling from the home front, are having some issues. We've just missed like 4 calls now. When I pick them, it interrupts. So, Amazonians, the phone lines are open and we would have to continue this calling and call. Now that Dr. Mungwa, let's get back to something which is the subject matter. I know you are still crashing the peripheries of it, but then perhaps you may want to dig a little bit deeper. It still has to do with defense. I asked you a very direct question, which I'm going back to it, and you dodged it. Not, I wouldn't say you dodged it. You answered something else, but then I took you to somewhere else. It's about the fact that there was a time, sometime early this year, you and I were discussing, and you actually gave to me an explanation that connected you to your root. That had to do with the boys coming in from Gokutunja and particularly No Pity. He he has a huge media presence. He has also been controversial, but we cannot deny the fact that he has been brave in his endeavors. As an elder brother, his son from Oketunja, perhaps are you coming from Babisi or Babango?
You mean me?
Yes,
I come from the quarter next to where Nopiti comes from. I come from Bambalang.
Bambalang, yeah. You could pick a call and talk that magic one and say, young man, this is it. Um, as a stakeholder in this movement and perhaps also the and most importantly the spokesperson, do you deem it necessary? If so be it, have you done so? To pick a phone call and call him and say, young man, come on, let's talk. The direction you're going, you might just become a victim.
I have not, in fact, I have not and never spoken to Nopiti.
I
Because
first of all appreciate that honesty. Thank you.
okay, and many people have thought that it is my role to speak with him. At, um, at some level, you can recognize the necessity or the importance of such a contact. But when you realize, when you know that the Central State for Self-Defense, not only does he come from Goktunja, he speaks my dialect fluently. You probably didn't know this. Frank has lived and worked in Bambalang and probably knows some parts of Bambalang I haven't been to, and can speak Bambalang just as well as I can. From that perspective, I do not really see the relevance of me trying to talk to him directly. Because if it is a matter of using that local attachment, I don't think there's any difference between Secretary Frank and I. Maybe to put it in another way, when I look at Ngokutunja, I look at Ngokutunja as an entity. I don't look at Ngokutunja as made up of this number of villages from Bamesing to Bamali. No, I have never ever taken that personal interest. When anything touches Ngogitunja, it does not matter where it comes from. I give him 150% of my effort. And I want to make this very clear because that is the way this government is going to survive future challenges. And I've also watched the president behave even when things relate to FACO. The president looks at it as a whole. You have to. At times, it's so easy to go the or whether the tribal or the whatever way, especially at this time. We have to maintain a certain level of professionalism and openness so that people know that when something pertains to a region, even where you come from, you have to give it the same level of attention.
Attention.
It can be very delicate. And I have given out messages in the dialect. I think I've given about 5 messages in the dialect in the past 3 months. And when I give this message, I make it very clear that I'm giving them that message to help them make up their minds, not to follow me blindly. At times, people think that because you share a certain village, no matter what I say, you have to agree with me. This is what is said. We are accusing Chris Anu and the others for having done. I cannot go ahead and do the same thing. And I tell them, whatever I send to you, if you know people who can speak our dialects, regardless of the fact that they don't come from, give it to them. Let them hear, because what I tell my people is exactly what I say in broken English, in pidgin English, or in English. It is open and it is unbiased and it is unequivocal. It is very, it is very clear what I tell them. So, just to make the long story short, I believe no pity has received my audios. I am very confident because it has gone wild. In fact, it's gone round and come back to me. So my message is very clear, and it states the position of the interim government, and it states the position of the country, and it shows the path we are taking. Anybody who is for this revolution, for us to have independence, knows exactly what we need to do. I don't have to personally knock on your door to remind you that we are from the same family or we are from the same village. That is not necessary. And I think we have communication tools today that we can access the nooks and crannies of every village for them to know what we mean. And I am so pleased even to announce here that I have had overwhelming support from people from the village, people who they send audios back to tell me that yes, what you said is correct. We believe in what you are doing. I don't see why no PT cannot be part of it. And I hope he is reflecting on his actions. And I know he's in a very difficult situation too, because he is not alone. And I believe no PT is a leader. He is a viable leader and he can make change. I only hope that we can encourage him to listen to us and to be able to do the right thing to support our cause. That's the best I can do for now. Over to you.
That's the best you can do for now, and your best is very well appreciated by Amazonians. What you just told us is your openness, and that's good as leadership. But then, from the common man perspective, we feel that all hands on deck. Perhaps you have so much trust in Comrade Frank, who is a friend to me, but maybe if you can just call on maybe the sweetness of your voice, because you talk sometimes like a pilot, adding your voice to his voice that is more military could also help to present that magic one. Now, Dr. Mugwa, look at this, is a
Listen,
civilian
let me say
population.
this. Let me say this. Let me
Yes,
say
go
this.
ahead, please.
I'm not. I don't think I am afraid to talk to no pity. Um, I even wish I had his phone number. I don't even have no pity's phone number. So these are all facts that I want to tell the Amazonian people. So uh, if there comes a point where it's absolutely necessary, there's a need for that, meaning that we have the elements of guaranteed results. If that's the case, I have to talk to Secretary of State Frank, because I believe I know things can change without that sort of one-to-one discussion. But if there's any room for that, I will need to talk to Frank and to see how far he's gone. Maybe he's had a breakaway, you know. Maybe he has, but I haven't spoken to him in that, on that topic. So That's something I'm going to put in my agenda, and I'll discuss it with Secretary of State, Frank.
I'm happy that I've been able to push you to publicly make that pledge in that engagement. You know, I love these videos on the screen, and I like the fact that we're enjoying them. This is a battalion. Now, the reason we've been streaming this since October 1st and until today. We're streaming it everywhere, and we continue to stream it. This is a civilian population, young girls, beautiful girls, hardworking mothers, from young to old, Amazonians coming out in their beauty and colors with peace plans, contrary to the rhetoric that Cameroons would love to say out there by claiming that our people, or the restoration forces, are oppressing the civilian population. Does this seem to you, Dr. Mungwa, a population that has been oppressed and forced to go out, in comparison with the 20th May and February, where civil servants are threatened to participate? Look at a
Absolutely
population
not.
that is fully representing themselves. Talk to us,
I
please.
mean, look at that young, beautiful child. Absolutely not. This is free will. Look, the urge to have independence this is boiling in them. It is boiling in the heart and the minds of Amazonians. And that's why when I come on stage, I want to make it very clear to La Republic, because I can read the body language of Amazonians. They are frustrated with the situation in which we find ourselves. And we are not going to give up so long as these very dedicated Amazonians are ready to defend our restoration forces, are ready to help our restoration forces. We are going to use every tool in our toolbox to make sure that independence comes to Amazonia. This is a promise I'm going to keep.
I love that kind of promise. And as I'm loving it, this is how I'm loving. Now you see our people. If you look at this, I was looking at these videos and I'm like, okay, when our defense effort will get into the urban territories, when our defense efforts will definitely get into Fako, into Mezam, in full range, and the beauty that it will look like to have, because the reason why people maybe in Mezam, in Bamenda town and in the main cities are not marching is not because they don't want to, but because of that fact that they feel intimidated by the occupier himself. Because if you remember the incident of October 22nd that we discussed last week, is it September 22nd 2017, where civilian population came out in millions like this and they were bulleted down. This is such a beauty, Dr. Mungwa.
The story of La Republic barbarism is not today. A week or so after the so-called independence, La Republic came to, I think, the southern zone, and killed people. I mean, it was so shocking.
Yeah.
That was our welcome message to the so-called, the countries or whatever of equal status. Okay,
Yeah.
it's unheard of. We are never going to share the same uh, territorial boundaries with La Republic. Never. We can. Uh, we are going to be a separate nation. There will be a separate nation, and we will treat them like every neighbor. If they behave as a civilized people, we will treat them the same. Otherwise, there's definitely going to be a lot of friction between us, because we are not going to take anything lying down. And for those politicians, those so-called Ambazonian politicians, who are trying to set up all sort of informal or backdoor meetings with Ambazonian leaders. The fun is that they're Ambazonians. This is Diongute. This is Diongute doing all this stupidity. He's trying to sell his own country to Latin. Can you imagine that? And he can't go to the president. He came about doing this sort of arrangement. And he's making sure that they are all low class Anglophone directors to come and talk to the interim government. Can you imagine that? And they think that we don't understand it? This is a government. And if there's a government to government negotiations, we want to see the heads of state sit together, not some clerk in an office who has been refurbished and named the director to come and talk to us. It's not going to work. Let him forget it. They should really think for their next gimmick. They should think very carefully because we are not going to be part of this charade.
Yeah, it's really it's really unfortunate how La République du Cameroon is thinking that even at this age they will use the same maneuver, the same, it's beauty. I really want us to keep on talking and talking about this because it was a complete celebration, Dr. Mungwa. You saw the defense forces in traditional outfits dancing. You saw them respecting the military protocols and marching. You saw them mobilizing local public, and it's something which I want us to get close to as we rounding up the discussion is the full function of government in our diasporic community, at the home front, the refugee camps. We saw government really working and working really very hard. Please, yeah, the magic one. It's about a government that is framed and structured. I believe you should be proud to be a part
Yeah,
of that.
absolutely. I mean, you look at the interim government, we are very structured. I mean, we have all the departments. Look at the splinter group. You tell me, who do you hear? You hear, a pinhead as a leader, and that's it. Nothing else we hear about them. And these are people who are going to lead us to independence. I mean, you don't have to be a rocket scientist to understand that these are all opportunities. And that's why at the call of any meeting, they jump because they were going to give them pay DMs. They are going to make money. I hear recently, I think, whatever his name, Agbo Bala, was found around in Kondingi trying to talk to a few fellas in Kondingi about this, whatever, this meeting. I don't even know where it's going to take place. And instead of going into the prison complex, he pulled them to a corner so that he can tell them, just talk to them in their ears. There's an opportunity for us to make a little money. I think La Republic wants us to go and talk with Dr. Sako and the interim government. I'm sure they must have been very excited so that they give them some money. That is not what we are here for. We are not here for money. Let Ambazonians understand we are not here for money. So if they have any dream of maybe thinking that ultimately they are going to meet with us and then they are going to promise us money, and that is what is going to change our mind, the answer is no. It's not going to happen. It's not going to happen. We have the mandate of the Ambazonian people, and that mandate is to take them to independence. We have to be accountable to the Ambazonian people. These are the boundary conditions in our differential equation. The boundary conditions is the satisfaction of the Ambazonian people, not leaders. So Cristiano can go take their bag of money. Cho Ayaba can go take their bag of money, whether it's Bo Herbert or Dr. Kwanga. I understand he's already taking some money from La Republic. I beg your pardon. We are not going to do that. We are here to fight for the liberation of our country. Period.
You see, as you can see, Dr. Mungwa, it did not start and end in the home front. We are just seeing these images. This is Yajua, and this is going to bring us into that discussion that some Amazonians would want to hear, the discussion of the man actually visiting Calabar, um, and what his real objectives were. So you had why the Indian government was structuring, planning to feed people. We had individuals with thousands of US dollars paying tickets and purportedly going without the flag to go. I don't want to put their image. I intentionally wouldn't want to bring their image because it has already made the waves on the media. But this is what the interim government was doing, putting smiles on the faces of these oppressed peoples. You could actually see for yourself uh, young men and women that are supposed to be in schools and they have been chased out of their houses. and these are them on the streets chanting, home again, home again. When shall I see my home? When shall I see my promised land? I will never forget my home. Nobody forced them. They came out in their hundreds from this small community of Boki local government area in the Cross River State. And they ended their day with smiles on their faces, eating real meals coming in from their interim government. This is beauty, and then we cannot overemphasize the need to highlight these pictures.
It gives me a lot of satisfaction when I see these pictures because it tells me that what we are doing is the right thing. As engineers or scientists, we always look for indicators. We don't expect somebody to come and scream at the top of their voices that yes, we're satisfied. There are indicators. And let me tell you that the international community, they also have indicators. They don't have to come through a classical way to tell you that we know what is going on. There are indicators. And these are one of the indicators. You ask yourself, as somebody who, with an open mind, can you tell us from the pictures that you see, who do these people support? I think everybody who has a fair thinking person will say, yes, I think it's Dr. Sako. There are indicators. Just like when you do the draft, we did a draft just a few days during the United Nations General Assembly. We were able to put together $260,000. That was one county. And no other splinter group has been able to put together $10,000. That is an indicator. So we know how to take indicators. We know. So if La Republique thinks that all they are looking for is somebody who will come and say, I'm president of the interim government, I'm coming to negotiate with you, and you think that is enough, then it tells you how dumb these guys are. They should have smart people to guide them to say, no, we are on the wrong path. We are not betting the right horse. But they keep on doing it over and over and over again. I mean, when I look at these people, I mean, they are so nicely dressed, but yet there's just nothing they can, they can't interpret what they say. It's just rather unfortunate. Very unfortunate. It only take a rocket, you don't have to be a rocket scientist to understand the trend on the ground. We see it all the time. And that's why Dr. Sako keeps pushing, keeps looking for new avenues, like we had recently, like meeting with the Black Caucus, like other stakeholders that he's been able to talk to, like having spoken to the UN for at least 20 to maybe 50 times over the past 5 years, making sure that our story remains the same, never changing the story. Whether it's talking to the State Department, making sure that he tells the story as it is, giving them the facts so it can enable them, make the right decisions. That's what we've been doing. Whether it's the temporary protected status, whether it is Senate Resolution 684. That's what we do in the interim government. You tell me which other splinter group has been able to do something that close to what we've done so far. That's what a government does. A government has responsibilities. Look at the humanitarian effort that we've led in the past week, just to make sure that we can bring smiles to the faces of refugees in Nigeria. That's what a government does. We have responsibilities. We are not only here to be looking at opportunities to put money in our pocket, because that is not our mandate. Our mandate is to free Ambazonians. Our mandate is to have an independent country. And when that is achieved, our work is done.
You know, Dr. Mungwa, this is quite sweet. You look at this, it started and ended with enough food. And President Sako continues to do this. He does this all the time. He's not just focused in that tasking effort. It's quite tasking to always have to feed these refugees. But that's not where he's limited. Why he's feeding and treating the wounded soldiers and furnishing them, he is also thinking that refugees, not just in Nigeria, in different parts of the world, there's just this ability and something. You're part of this government. Perhaps you want to let the people understand how the government is streamlined and how they do their activities. How do they happen to come up in with these projects? It's quite challenging, and you have all of these different projects. Thousands and thousands of dollars was spent to make sure that Amazonia can have a fruitful celebration.
Absolutely. I mean, this did not just happen within a day. When this, don't want to call his name, when he took his flight to Nigeria to spend 2 days, I think he failed to understand that to put together the logistics, the financial package, to be able to bring these resources, buy and transport and bring to these people, and making sure that these refugees actually get this food. It takes time, and it takes effort, and it takes a lot of planning. This is project management, okay? Because project management has a start date and an end date. If the food arrived on the 3rd of October, it's of no use. It's not going to have the same impact. We have to make sure that the critical path, the end date will be on the 1st of October or before the 1st of October, so that the people can see the significance of this day as they receive these gifts. So we have the scope. You have the financial package, you have the stakeholders, okay, you have the procurement part of it. Because this food doesn't just drop from the sky.
Now, Dr. Mungwa, just look at the beauty of these kids on the screen.
Exactly. So
just look at the smiles that were brought into their faces and how they inspired. This is history, It's a history
absolutely.
that was made in spite of their plight. The fact that some of them will have to go for days without food. It comes to a day that they recognize their nation and they are dancing. This is amazing.
I won't be surprised if one of those kids becomes the president of Amazonia in 20 years. Okay? So we are supporting these people because these are the people who will rise and lead this country when we pass the baton. Okay? We are not going to be here forever. So these are the leaders that we are training. And by showing them that we care for them, they will grow up with that mentality that they have to give back to society. And I keep telling everybody, for those who've been fortunate enough to survive within the structure of La Republic, you have to be grateful and to be able to give back dividends to your community. That is why we are working in the interim government. It's pro bono. We are not being paid. So when you have a lot of lousy people who go and say, my trip to Boya, you are taking all the money, and so on and so forth. I think these are people who have never contributed to society in any shape or form.
Dr. Mungwa, you just said something there that brings me back to the president's speech. And I'd like us to watch a few minutes, about 2 or 3 minutes of this landmark speech. This speech is a speech I have personally watched at least, to say the least, at least 10 times. And every time I feel like just putting, the president said, we are not giving up. And now when he was talking to Cameroon, he was categorical that we're not giving up. Let's just watch a portion of this speech. I want Amazonians to listen. Just sit there, we'll watch a few minutes, and we'll come back to continue this discussion so that you can understand the direction and where Dr. Mungwa is getting his energy from. Stay tuned.
Slave masters creed La République du Cameroon stayed on their high horses. They shunned the opportunity to participate in a peaceful option. They categorically rejected dialogue, ignored the direct counsel of the United States of America that told them this problem cannot be resolved militarily. They opted to kill their way to normalcy, even when they know that will be a path to our mutual annihilation. Let me address dictator Paul Biya of La République du Cameroon and the sponsors of this genocide in Amazonia. Your arrogance in rejecting any form of international mediation is exacerbating the little resistance that our forces had as we defend ourselves within the boundaries of our territory. Take this seriously. Trying to gather or consult some so-called Anglophones.
Now we're coming back to that. But you see, I want Amazonians to listen this particular place very keenly. It was sweet. The speech from the very first word of it was what it took for a nation, you know, committing time like the president gets sleepless night so that he can talk into the hearts of his people is something that defines a true leader, because people are made out of words, and you have the president is very calculative every time he chooses the words he wants to give. And it got to the melting point when he said, "Let me talk to Bia." You know, in spite of everything. Now, Bia to me is an institution, the Kabas, because the Bia as a human being is a dead one. But now, the institution, he's telling them something which I want Amazonians to listen very closely.
Anywhere in the diaspora for some informal talks or consultation does not sound like a strategy to end this war. La République du Cameroon has never dialogued with us. In 1960-61, in Fumban, La République aborted the first genuine dialogue and opted for unilateralism. And in 1966, they dissolved our institutions without dialogue. In 1972, they changed the form of state between a supposed two states of equal status without dialogue. In 1984, they changed the name of the country, reverting to their former name, the name they used, and they seceded from the experimental union without dialogue. In 1993 and 94, they refused to dialogue with us. In 1996, they refused to organize a sovereign national conference we demanded for genuine dialogue. In 2017, they refused to dialogue with our consortium of civil society organizations. And in 2022, they rejected the Swiss mediation process for genuine dialogue. They are, however, lying to the international community that they have won the war, that peace has returned in Ambazonia, and that reconstruction is already going on. Please, don't blame a serial liar. Blame those who continue to believe him. La République du Cameroon is free to do her endless circles of informal consultations with so-called Ambazonian leaders in the diaspora as they chose. But when they will be ready to meet Ambazonia, the IG will meet with them. It shall be government delegation versus government delegation. No more, no less. If the colonial government of La République du Cameroon is not part of any delegation, the government of Ambazonia shall not also be part of any so-called delegation to meet whoever comes in the name of La République du Cameroon. If after 3 years of toying with and outrightly trashing the Swiss mediation, La République is only interested in orchestrating third-party informal consultations with no direct government involvement, it means they have outrightly rejected the path of peace. While they contemplate using their so-called special forces to kill more of our innocent population, we cannot afford to take our eyes off the war for a minute. We will match La République du Cameroon strategy for strategy. We must match them in height and in breadth, in firepower. Ambazonia will have to deal decisively with all trespassers and facilitators of this genocide on our people. To do so effectively.
Never mind, fellow Amazonians, you can watch this. I know you want us to continue without pressing a pause. Amazonians will have to deal decisively. Decisively. Those were some of the best comments in the speech, and that was what Amazonians wanted to hear. That alone inspired Boyo. Yeah, you see, Dr. Mungwa, it brings me back to this discussion of people taking and claiming responsibilities of what they don't do. Now, when we stop drafting, activities on the ground stop. When we start drafting, everybody is now claiming responsibility
Yeah,
for
I
what is
mean,
happening.
I'm shocked to hear Bo Hubbard talk about some of the successes in Boyo when I've never seen him pull out a $1 note to pay for the draft. This is somebody who, when he got involved in the process,
That's your friend that the both of you always fight at the background.
um, is there an echo coming from me?
No, that's fine. It's okay.
Okay. So Bo Herbert comes out of the woodworks to talk how majestic whatever they've done in Boyo, and this someone who has never lifted a dollar from his pocket to pay for it. But he's been reported documented for having appropriated a lot of cultural money. Bo Herbert, we know that he can come on board to challenge. We have proof. Okay, so these are not people who even be have secretaries to the secretaries of state. They cannot be because they are so untrustworthy. The interim government, as it stands right now, these are people who are wholly 100% dedicated to the cause of independence. And you can see from the president's speech, it strikes the heart of Amazonian because he's been able to access the pain and suffering that people are going through. You can only write a speech of that nature if you really have a feeling for what the people are going through.
Yeah.
You
Dr.
cannot, it
Mungwa,
cannot
we
be
have
given.
Kari here. Maybe when he's done, you will have to continue. Mayor Kari, please, Ambazonians are listening to you.
Yes, thank you very much, TPK, for your leadership from the media front. Thank you, Dr. Mungwa, for another great Tuesday. Coming this time to send a resounding message to all Amazonians for a remarkable outing on October 1, 2022, on the occasion of Amazonia's independence. And most importantly, to appreciate, our, freedom defenders, our heirs, and to give them a 21 armor gun salute for, a very, very, very significant message that they sent out on October 1. Loud and clear, we are united in purpose. And to tell the international community that La Republic has been defeated hands down. Still some last kicks of a dying horse out there, but the message is very clear. We saw that message in Manu, we saw it in Fako, we saw it in Boni County, we saw it in Gokutinja, we saw it in Dongamanton, we saw it in Boyo, we saw it in Mezam, and so on and so forth. The message was the same. We are determined to finish what we have started, and that it is just a matter of time before we declare total victory. And so I want to thank every Amazonian who contributed in one way, shape, or form to this success. We saw our refugees in Nigeria come out to receive food stuff and to march, in recognition and in celebration and in unity. Again, the message was the same: unity of purpose. And so I could not allow this, I could not let this opportunity go by without me coming out to say thank you to all Amazonians, and particularly as a defense person, thank you, our area on the home front for, that wonderful about the Party King. That's a little bit that I wanted to share, with everyone who's listening to us today. As always.
I'm not going to let you off the hook. Before I let you go, Mayor Kare, you happen to be directly involved with defense, and it is vital. There's a lot of conspiracy, if I may say so, and a lot of questions that require some answers from Amazonians. I would appreciate the fact that you have appreciated what the restoration forces are doing. Now, there are pops up from the home front. You have different names coming up. You had Comrade UN Ochiba yesterday. Nesno Chiba was bringing up a new council that is coming up. Any information you have? How can we assure Amazonians that you, at the level of the ANC, um, loyal to this government, have a grip with these boys on the ground? If not, what are you doing to put them together? Because we know the direction they are taking is more probably not the right. We need to be confident that draftees are not putting resources to create for themselves disorganized men in arm.
Yes, Papa the King. I want to assure Ambazonians that, they should be rest assured, all is well and all shall be well. You may ask, why do I say this? I say this because I say this because we know the enemy that we are fighting. Okay, this is an enemy who has survived on divide and rule for a very long time, and so it will not be unexpected to see the enemy trying to throw out some names, trying to do little things, very tricks here and there to try to divide us and so on and so forth. But we want to tell every Amazonian rather, that this is a different era. This is a different generation. Okay, we have picked up arms to defend ourselves, and defending ourselves shall we until we get to Boya. And yes, it would be naive to say that there are no issues here and there, but we are going to deal with those squarely, because it is not if you see any issues out there, it is not the first time that the enemy is trying to sow seeds of divides amongst us. We have seen it with the creation of Connect IG. We have seen it with the creation of groups, and like ADF, like APS, and like attempt to create unity warriors and so on and so forth. And we have, at the end of the day, been able to steer the ship in the right direction, because most Amazonians, and the vast majority of Amazonians, if I put it in other words, they know exactly what they want, they know exactly who their leader is, they know exactly where to put their resources and where to put their trust. And so, when I say that Ambazonians should be rest assured, all is well and all shall be well, that is what informs that opinion. Thank you. I hope I addressed.
Yeah. Can you assure? I've been putting it hard on Dr. Mungwa this evening, and I think he's having a breath of fresh air since you're on this call, because you're going to tackle some of these issues yourself. Can you assure Amazonian stakeholders, draftees that are watching right now, that we can possibly that your side of the government has a grip on the ground when it comes to handling the boys, the defense volunteers on the ground? And if you're having some challenges, where are you having challenges, and what are you hoping to do to fill in that gap?
Like I said before, the enemy will always play tricks, and the enemy has been playing tricks. It is not the first time that we are seeing it. You know, today they call us Nozo. We did not join or attempt to form a union with La Republica as Nozo. You see how Nozo. That name, yeah, Nozo. That name is one of those symbols of the enemy's effort to divide us. Okay, and so I just point that one to show how far back this effort by the enemy has been. And when I say it is not only the task of the DSS, it is also the task of our donors. If every one of us would join our LGA and contribute within your LGA, if any one of us would pay your citizenship levy, if every one of us, wherever you are, would join hands in the structures that do exist at the people's IG to make your own contribution. It will make the job of the DSS a little easier to make sure that we're unity within the ranks. Because when we go out there,
I like the word unity within the ranks. Go right ahead. I like the word unity within the ranks.
Yes, when we as civilians, when we as supporters, when we go out there, we send mixed messages. That can also affect our volunteer fighters. And so that's why I say it is the task of every Amazonian to play their own little role where they are, so that together we can quickly put this thing at the end, have our country build the institutions that we need to build an exemplary economy, build an exemplary democracy, build an exemplary technology, and so on and so forth, so that our people can put this suffering, the pain and suffering that they are now enduring, they can put it behind it.
Yeah, Mirokari, real quickly, I want to ask you. We've seen the images coming in from Boyo County today. Do you have any more details that has not been published? What are the updates? What are the casualties on the site of the enemy? Perhaps you want to tell us that as we listen.
One thing with us in defense is that we try to move cautiously. We have not yet dotted all of our I's or cut all of our T's. That means that we have not talked to all the actors on the ground, the assets that brought us the glory that we see. When things like this happen, naturally there are some precautions that have to be taken, and so let our people rest assured in the hours and days ahead. We're going to bring them as much details as possible. And so I think that's the way I can put it for right now.
Okay, thank you very much. Earlier on, you mentioned some of the things that you will need from the community, their collaboration, to ensure that we do have to ensure cohesion within the ranks. Now, what else are you requesting to Ambazonians at this critical time to ensure that you can execute your self-defense apparatus on the ground effectively?
We're asking of our people what we have said many times. If you see something, say something. See someone in your community that you have never seen before. Don't just assume that that person is there in your best interest. Say something. Help our self-defense volunteers out. Tell them what you saw. Tell them what direction the enemy is going. Tell them what is being said within your community. Tell them what the civilian people, cabal, is doing. Tell them what the colonial administrators, what they told you. You know who they are. your children go to school, yes. You go to school, you church with some of them. You do business with some of them. You work for some of them. And so on and so forth. So you do interact with them. Bring us intelligence. We can assure you, whatever information you bring will keep your identity discreet. Okay, as always been. We want to thank the people who have already been doing this and want to encourage others to do the same thing. See something, say something.
Now, in terms of that's the last one. As I let you go, and you have to maybe be brief on this. We're hitting the hour soon, so we have to close the program. The last one is this: in terms of resources, I'm talking not just from the diaspora or the diasporic community. In terms of resources, in terms of in the home front, what are you requesting our people to do for these boys in the ground?
As I said before, the first thing is information, okay? And the next one is prayer. Then material things can follow. When I say material things, I say maybe you can give them food items, you can provide, medical assistance if you are able to, and so on and so forth. And so when we say we need assistance on the ground, those are some of the things and some of the areas where our people can be of assistance.
Thank you very much, Mayor Kare. You have helped Dr. Mungwa this evening. He's going to go to bed smiling. Your presence, he has been avoiding certain questions, and I tried not to press so much. Thank you for joining this broadcast. Fellow Amazonians at the home front, you heard from
It's a pleasure. I appreciate it.
thank you. Hope to have you next time. I wish I could get Francis Cheney on phone, but then, fellow Amazonians, you heard from the officials themselves. They are calling on it's a collective work. It's a synergy. It is our lifestyle, and that's why there is the Amber Peace Plan. I grew up in Bamenda where it's not possible to die of starvation. Even if you people cook in your home, it was normal to just sit and a neighbor you have never greeted just comes in with Nzachu. I lived more around the Mankonara, just love at you. I'm just talking, you can see the saliva just coming all over my mouth now. You don't even know the neighbor, and you have food. And this culture has got to continue. And this was what led to the strength of Nigel Fundi in the 90s because financial resources were scarce. Amazonians, Southern Cameroonians at the time came out with food and do this because nobody, as I speak right now, in spite of the propaganda that Cameroon is bringing to you, nobody can protect you right now better than the Amazonian Restoration Forces. These forces, perhaps some of them, the Antangajis, the infiltration that has made some of them might have not been what you expected, but they are at least 100 times better than the forces of occupation. Dr. Mungwa, please, you may want to give your final statement.
Yes, absolutely. I think just to talk about that, I think it's time now to start appealing to all those Tanganji boys. These are, bona fide Amazonians, to rethink their strategy, to rethink the nation that they would like to be part of. Because this war will soon end and they'll be on the losing side. And it's important. Maybe they can start repenting now. They have to rethink their strategy. And there are a number of ways they can do it. The one way is to make sure that whatever information comes their way that is going to destroy our people, they send it over. I'm not saying we're not getting it, but the more we get it, the better it is. Or they should just stop executing orders given to them by La République du Cameroon. This is our country. We want Ambazonians to be happy, to live free and not in shackles in our country. So as my concluding statement, once again, I'm very happy to come here. And this today is a very particular day because this is the first presentation to the Ambazonian people after Independence Day. So once again, happy Independence Day. You can see the emotion that the president's speech raised among Ambazonians. It showed Ambazonian people how dedicated the interim government is as far as this revolution is concerned. We are in to win this thing. We are not in to go negotiate in the back house, or to go negotiate in a chicken parlor, or in a place nobody knows. We have to do it openly. We want to make sure that our guarantors are aware of what is going on, and want to make sure that all the stakeholders are informed. And at the end of it, Ambazonian people should be happy with what we do. And once again, thank you, and I look forward to talking to you again next week. Goodbye and good night.
Yes, fellow Amazonians, you've just heard it from the Secretary of State for Communications and IT, and Mayor Carey, a very instrumental figure when it comes to self-defense in Amazonia, that it is a synergy. We have to synergize. We have to work as a people, not different from what the president said. Mr. President said it so sweetly, so beautifully, like never before. He said, at this time, we must confront the enemy as one people, one government, and one leader. And what that is what Yaoundé doesn't like to hear. This weekend, we will all be heading towards Indiana. It's an opportunity for Amazonians to come angrily, so that you come vigorously to tell the, I know that you're going to do it big, but you have to do it this time with a double effort, because you want to pass a message. First of all, to Celine Dion Gute's cousin, or whatever, niece, or whatever, and also to tell Cameroon that we know what we're doing. We know that the draft is actually the way forward. I wouldn't want to take so much of your energy and time again. With much respect of your time, I will be leaving you with this promo we've done for Indian, and tomorrow, hopefully, we'll recommence our discussion on very pertinent issue. Good night.
The Amber War Draft Award 22 is here. People, it's time to win again.
This is the time for us to draft until we draft. That must be our slogan and rallying cry now. And along the way, we should be asking ourselves some critical questions.
Are we still enjoying 3 square meals a day? While our boys on the ground lack the basic gear they need to resist the occupiers?
Are we still living a life of luxury and comfort, while our brave restoration forces lack medical supplies at the home front?
Are we still throwing big birthday bashes while our restoration forces lack basic communication equipment to maximize their efforts?
Are we still going on cruises and expensive vacations while our IDFs on the ground go without food and logistics?
Are we still finding excuses not to make the necessary sacrifices and drafting big while our restoration forces lack the game-changing equipment that they so desperately need to bleed the enemy?
On a daily basis, how much are we putting aside for our liberation, knowing that only through the fierce resistance are we going to liberate our beloved country?
Are we providing the federal government and the CIC the means to carry out some of the critical, intelligence and other special operations across the national territory?
As we ponder these questions, we must remember that a goal that is not funded is nothing but a wish. And we must not let Amazonia die as a wish, because we failed to fulfill our patriotic duties by making the great sacrifices befitting a great people.
The war draft once more is coming to your county. Stand up and be counted. No greater victory was ever achieved than by greater sacrifices. We are enough, so let's draft, and draft until we drop. Our existence as a people depend on that.
It is Award 22. Let us draft until we drop.
Fellow Ambazonians, on this day, 5 years ago, we all rose as one nation to assert the independence of our beloved country, Ambazonia. This solemn act of restoration was our collective resolve to finally terminate 6 decades of annexation, colonization, and subjugation by our eastern neighbor, La République du Cameroon, which had held us in a chokehold all this while. Some enlightened leaders had attempted to do this in the past for the people. Individuals like Fon Gojidinka and Justice Alobwede, but without groundswell support. This time, the people decided to do it for the leaders. That's why this is the people's fight. Several attempts by our forebears to release us as a people from this stranglehold were either ignored, ridiculed, or violently suppressed. Many of them were assassinated and some died in dungeons, serving life sentences handed down to them by La République du Cameroon colonial kangaroo courts, if they were lucky at all to have their day in court. As I address you today, more than 50,000 of our compatriots, mostly civilians going about their daily lives, have been massacred by French Cameroon. Going by these figures, on average, at least 27 of our citizens are massacred every single day these past 5 years, meaning more than one Ambazonian is killed every hour from the day we restored our independence. Putting this in perspective, before I finish addressing you tonight, at least one Ambazonian civilian must have been summarily murdered by French Cameroon soldiers, just for being Ambazonian. This genocidal war declared on us by the 90-year-old dictator Paul Biya on the 30th of November 2017 is raging, and our people are going through this horror in pain and in plain sight while the world watches on. This is our reality daily. Let us, on this solemn national occasion, remember all our fellow compatriots who have been killed during these 6 years of resistance, our self-defense forces who volunteered to take the front line to defend our people against this barbarism, and the thousands of innocent civilians massacred, some burnt alive in their homes. A moment of silence, please. We all lay our wreaths on the graves we know, and for all our innocent ones abducted, killed, and buried in unknown graves. We say rest in power. Permit me to say Happy Independence Day to you all, Ambazonians. I invite all the nations of the world to join us as we celebrate our Independence Day as scripted on the charters of the United Nations.